Welcome to Melanated Rising, where we inspire, uplift, and ignite Black creatives, all while changing the narratives around Blackness. What does it mean to exist Black in this world today with our many intersections? That's exactly what we explore, the challenges, the beauty, and the brilliance. Every episode is a look at what is possible when Black creatives stand in our undeniable power. I am your host, Kristen Iris.
And I am Renelle Nelson.
Welcome to Melanated Rising. Thank you all for joining us for another episode. I have with me Renelle Nelson, and I feel like this is going to be some interesting things coming up in this conversation. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Renelle E. Nelson is an engaging and charismatic clinician and a speaker that gives out hope and actionable steps to create change. She founded Kaleidoscope Services LLC to create a safe and non-judgmental space for clients who may not change their circumstances but can change their view. Renelle combined being a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sex therapist to brand herself as an infidelity intimacy recovery strategist. She creates a strategic plan to assist committed individuals with reconnecting back to themselves, life, and relationships after betrayal. Thank you so much for joining us, Renelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing today?
I am really good. It's nice outside. I'm feeling it.
Yes, excellent. All right. So let's dive in. I start everyone with a question, and that question for you is, what narratives around Blackness are you challenging or changing?
The narratives I am changing is to stop surviving, turn that off, and start to thrive. We are so taught generation to generation on how to survive. And I'm always surviving, but it just put us in a different space. So I'm challenging survival and really just flipping that switch down and really teaching and getting on my soapbox and teaching how to thrive during when we're healing. Thrive after healing instead of just surviving stuff.
Absolutely. I love that. Man, that's a theme that I feel like has been coming up a lot in my life lately, and shifting out of it, like trying to look at the ways that it has affected even just like my money, my relationship to money, or relationships with people, just life. And then looking at how that's changing. Like last year, it was almost like my motto was like, but did I die? It was like,
yeah.
Can you do this, or can you do? I'm like, no, I can't pay for that. But am I going to die? Am I going to die if I don't pay for that? And this year I'm
right.
like, I'm over that. I don't want to live like that. It's like survival is important because it's how we survive. But,
right.
What are some of those, just like for you, what are some of those things that you see where it's like, yes, it helped us survive, but then it becomes a detriment to us when we don't need to be in survival mode, when we keep operating from there?
I see it in my clients as coping skills that are no longer valid, shutting down, avoidance, and the famous wall. We building these walls and we don't know if it's to protect or to harm. Is it to push people out or keep stuff in? So the walls we're creating are coming like prisons. So it's just like, and we hold on to these coping skills because this will help us survive, but we don't really know when to let that shit go. It's okay. It's okay. You can put it to the side of you. You can still have that skill, but let's try a different one.
Oh, I like that. So in relationships, what are so you said like shutting down, what are some of the ways that you teach them to shift out of that?
The shift out of it, the first thing for me is like I have this whole healing thing. Like the first thing to me is to become aware. We have to become aware. Everybody talk about healing, but we don't know what the hell we're healing. We just see it in media. Oh, I need to heal.
Yes.
But nobody really simmer in their own shit and be like, this is what I need to heal. So first for me is acknowledgement. Really acknowledging and being aware. We're really aware and then acknowledging what you
Okay.
need to heal. And then from there, see what you need and what realistically does healing look like. Healing is such a broad word, and healing means different things to different people. We liken the memes. We get in the healing groups. What actually does healing mean to you? Because sometimes healing is not a straight journey. Healing can be painful
Mm-hmm.
because remember, you are digging out all that infection, and it's going to hurt, and you got to be ready for that. So when people say, oh, I'm healing, and they look, I'm like, okay, but you can heal and be happy. So that's another thing I like to tell people too, because people think that when they start healing, they got to go into this mass depression. I'm like, no, you can heal and be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Yes.
you okay.
Absolutely. So I completely agree with you that you have to dig in, because like as a coach myself, that's what I do is like people are so on the surface of like fear or I feel insecure, and I'm like, okay, but where does that come from? Like we need to dig all the way down to where that's rooted in, and like the things from your past that's rooted in, and how that's shaped the way you're showing up in the world now before you can change it. And so many people
Right.
don't realize, one, how deep of the work it is that they have to do, but they don't even realize how many layers they have to peel away just to get to that
Mm-hmm.
root thing, and then be like, oh, like, wait, this thing that happened when I was a kid is why I'm not communicating with my partner the way that I could be,
Mm-hmm.
like, and they don't even see it. It's so, because it's so complicated and it's shown up in so many different ways.
Right. I agree.
So you work around infidelity and betrayal,
Mm-hmm.
correct? All right. So tell me a little
Yes.
bit, more like the reason I found that so interesting. That's one of the reasons that like I wanted to have you on the show, is because I feel like there is in Black community a story or a narrative around like Black men are trash and they can't be trusted and they're fuckboys, and Black women are not loyal and they only care about X, Y, and Z. But then there's also the whole other end of the spectrum of like, oh, this is my queen and this is my king, and we're like, we're a power couple and all of that. And it's like these two different sides, and it seems very polarized. And there's
Right.
all this muck in the middle, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like I almost feel like people sometimes don't know how to operate in the middle, because they're like, either we got to be a power couple, or like, you're trash, you got to go, you're
Yeah.
trash, and so
Yeah.
what are some of the things that moved you into this, and are there things about those narratives that come into play when you work with people?
I became who I needed at that time. I was in a relationship, excuse me, a long-term relationship that was plagued by betrayal. I went and was telling people, hey, he cheating on me, or guess what, this bitch called my house, and just what she said to me. One of the things I love to tell people, because people don't believe it happened, or I'm just being transparent. A woman called me and be like, your man is cheating on us. I'm like, what? It just opened my mind up that people don't think stuff like this. I'm like, she said, so this is somebody who not only knew me and was cool with it, and she was like, I can deal with you, I can't deal with nobody else. Blew my damn mind. So just the aspect of that, I decided to still stay in my relationship to work it out, but I didn't have the tools. So I wanted to get educated, and I couldn't find nobody, one, who looked like me, two, who was going to give me the education that I needed to know about it. Everybody was telling me, men just do that, you'll be okay, or leave them. And see, one thing with leaving them, and eventually I did, but nobody tell you that the trauma still exists.
Mhm.
Nobody tell me that I will have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, because of the betrayal and the infidelity. Nobody told me that trauma would showcase more so in how I do business, how I in my next relationships, any friendships. Nobody told me that. So I had to become somebody I needed. So that's what I did. The narrative that I want to talk about is first information. We don't talk about it. We assume monogamy. We assume that just because the condoms are off and I'm at your house, you got a key, that it's not going to be anybody else. An assumption is putting a lot of people in dire straits and in danger. We don't discuss it. We assume monogamy. And some of us don't even know what monogamy means. Nobody even knows what betrayal means. Betrayal can mean more than just sexual intercourse. It can be emotional betrayal. It can be financial betrayal. And I educate that betrayal starts way before a romantic relationship. The first people to betray you are your family. Your mom, your dad, your cousins, your grandmother. And you feel betrayal, and it's called betrayal by love. And then from that forms more into friendships, right? Did your friend tell a story on you? Or did you say you was going to go somewhere, you saw your friend with your boyfriend? That stems from betrayal. And you also, in your developmental years, see how people around you deal with betrayal. We see our family, should they stay or should they go? We see our aunties, uncle doing this, but she stayed. We see uncle doing this, but she left. We see uncle bringing somebody in that's not auntie and the family not talking about it. So this is teaching us about betrayal even before we even get in a romantic relationship. So this is what I like to ask my clients and my students: where did you learn about betrayal? What does betrayal mean to you? What does infidelity means to you? So these are the things we got to get to, because we got to get to the core and education behind it.
Wow. Like, you can see my face. Everybody else can't see my face, but there are so many things in there. Like, the first thing you said about like, nobody taught you, the aftermath of leaving, that like you would still have the trauma. And I completely relate to that. I was previously, and like, I was with someone, they didn't cheat, but it was an emotionally abusive relationship. And it took me, I don't know, a long time to work through that healing. But it's like, even after I was out of the relationship, even after like I had cut him out of my life, even after, I didn't even have any feelings for him, I was still angry. And then
Yeah.
new trauma was coming up of things that I was remembering that happened when we were together, that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
great, now I have to deal with that. And it's only been like in the last 2 or 3 weeks where something somebody else did was similar to something he had done. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I have PTSD. Like, I actually have, and I was like, no, that's dramatic. But then it's like, no, PTSD is not just for like veterans and, people who
Mm-mm.
come out of physically abusive
Mm-mm.
relationships. It, like, I had PTSD from that emotionally abusive relationship. And I'm really good now at upholding boundaries with people so that they don't do things that trigger my PTSD. But it just happened like
Mm-hmm.
even, a week and a half ago. I was like with someone, and I was like, oh, I'm like, they're triggering my PTSD right now. Like, that's what that is. I was like, they
Mm-hmm.
gotta go. I can't, this isn't gonna work.
You
So
have to know and understand your triggers.
yes.
And understand your triggers. You have to know and understand. So many times that we feel like we can control our other partner, and we don't control people, we control experiences, right?
Mm.
So it's that whole thing. We just got to think real deep about it, and we have to get out the part of assumption, and we have to really demystify the whole thing of, if you said it's going to happen. This is not like Beetlejuice. This is not like Candyman, Bloody Mary. But you got all these tales in your head, so you think, you talk about betrayal, you talk about monogamy, I'm not going to talk about it because it's going to happen. And that's a myth. You need to get on the same page. You need on the same page, because you can't assume. I deal with so many people in my practice who assumption, like I said, what's this? Assumption, judgment, and resentment are the mistresses in relationships that will break up your relationship quicker than a human will. Just having that resentment, having those judgments, and having that assumption and assuming so much stuff that's not even valid will really tear up your relationship. And I tell you, you're not communicating, right? So
Yep.
communication is such the key about, how do you feel about betrayal? Have you ever been betrayed? Are you healing from betrayal? What does infidelity look like for you? What does that look like for us? Is me talking to another person infidelity to you, or is it sex? Talking
Yes,
about this stuff.
yes, that's such an
Talking
important
about this stuff.
question.
Nobody is talking about these things. And what's so crazy, even married people don't talk. They just sit up there and say I do, to having a whole, stuff like that. And then that's the last time they say they vows, and that's the last time they talk about monogamy. And then they come up, and then everybody look like a deer in headlights, be like, what do you mean? We said these vows. I say, tell people, like, vows, kids, ultimatums, all this stuff does not prevent infidelity. So that's another myth. I'm gonna have a baby and we a family, and all that does not
Band-Aid
stop
babies.
infidelity.
Band-Aid
Mhm.
babies. No.
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't. And that's actually that's a really important distinction, is what actually is infidelity to you. So um I was in Maryland in April. I was working on a film, and my boyfriend then was home, and so people there were like, "Oh, do you think he's like doing right by you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "You think he's like, being good?" And I'm like, "Oh, we don't have like typical parameters on our relationship. Like but we talked a lot about like what is allowed and what is not allowed, And so for us, distinctions on like what actually is cheating is different from what it is for other people. And some people are like, "Oh, you're talking to this person, that's cheating." And some people are like, "I don't care if you sleep with this person, you just can't have a relationship with this person." And so it's just, you have to have that communication. And I feel like also a willingness to adjust if like something later on you're like, "Oh, I'm actually not okay with this," or, "Oh, I actually am okay with this." You got to be willing to have like an open conversation over time, because just like you change individually over time, you change as a couple as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Desire changes, pleasure changes,
Mm-hmm.
everything changes over time. What aroused you when you were 16 is not going to work when you're 30.
Yes.
Your appetite changes. You used to can eat Oreos, now you don't like them. And see, people got to understand, even love changes. People don't understand that love changes, and the dopamine, everything, the arousal changes, and it get more mature. And I have so many couples who feel like, because they don't feel like they used to, they fell out of love. And I have to educate them, as they didn't fall out of love, the love just matured. The same anxiety driven love, it just changed and matured, and it's still there. So what happened is, I find people still chasing that first high. I'm not in love with this person, so I'm going to go for somebody else. And everything is good at the beginning. So they chasing this
Yeah.
high and chasing this thing. So they're just chasing it, and then eventually that dwindle out. And see, that starts the serial cheaters,
Okay.
everything. And then we have like the conflict avoidant, people who can't be their self and avoid conflict at their house, but then they can advocate at another house. And then we may have, another one is like the split self. Like, I can't be who I want to be with you, but it's something about this other person that I can just be myself. So it's so many different kinds of affair types, and there's so many different types of situations. And that's why I educate people on, everything is not for everybody. Just know your body. Your relationship is not like anybody else. So you can't sit in those waiting to exhale circles and discuss all, your relationship, because the dynamics are different.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Oh, and that's tricky, because we do, I mean, at least like I can speak from the perspective of a woman, is like, I go to my girlfriends and I talk about, this is what's going on. This is what's happening in my relationship. And you have to, I feel like if you're talking to your friends, you have to talk to friends who understand that your situation is your situation, and not that it doesn't have to look like theirs, or it doesn't have to look like what they would do,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. And that's, you got to have the right people around you when you're doing that. You know, if you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to friends, you got to have the
You
right people
do.
around you.
Yeah, yeah, because it is difficult and it is go back to your core and what your makeup is. Because you don't want to, emotions, feelings are not facts.
Mm,
And that's another thing is we base a lot of major moves on feelings and feelings change. And then we live with regret and resentment. You know,
ooh,
I have so many people. I work with so many couples who are just say an individual had a breakup. And one of the things that we do when somebody had a breakup is we put the relationship on the table and we talk about the good and bad. And you will notice that when you try to throw all the relationship under bad, your body's saying, nah, bruh. Remember y'all did this and y'all had a good time. Remember you had this and do a good time, but you suppress that. And then that's what sometimes causes those flashbacks. And you be like, I don't want to like him. And all that stuff come through. And so what we talk about is letting that shit flow, simmer in it, because allow yourself to experience that. You can love somebody and not want to be with them.
true.
You can hate what they did and still love them. Let that flow through, and your body will heal a little bit faster. Acknowledging, yes, they did have a good time, but they did me wrong, and I didn't like that. Separate it in your body, and that I talk to people, and that relieves some of that trauma of trying to erase the whole damn relationship. You know, I just saw that worked. And that's what happens, especially with infidelity. They did wrong. They did make a bad choice, but it was something in good in the relationship. Let's just keep that. But you don't have to be with them. You know, just because they brought you joy, you don't have to still be with them. If it's crossing your boundary, you have that choice. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what we talk about too.
Ooh. Now, in that, talking about the, like, allowing all the parts of the relationship, the good and the bad. I feel like, and speaking from my experience, there was almost a sense of betrayal of myself, because it was like, how can I like these things when this person is being so awful to me? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so, and there was a betrayal of myself in that I stayed too long, and eventually I did leave, but like, there was that part of it, but there was also this, like, I like these things even though this person's awful to me, and almost like a battle within myself. So do you talk at all or help people at all with, like, an internal sense of betrayal?
Yeah, but then just by you saying all that, do you know what levels you cross by even acknowledging that? I betrayed myself. Isn't that the whole damn part of healing?
Yeah.
Awareness.
Yeah,
You
that
just
was
said
a
a
big
mouthful,
part
and
for
I'm
me.
that. Yeah, and I'm that person who will let you and provide a safe and nurturing environment that we bounce stuff off. Because I would just ask you what you just said. Did you just hear yourself? You just did therapy with your damn self. You
Yeah.
just said that, was I betraying myself in that? But isn't that enlightened? And with that enlightenment, won't you move different?
Yeah, I
Right?
did. I
All
did
we
when I
gotta
made
do,
that realization. I was like, wow, I have some healing and forgiveness to do of myself. Like, I need to
and we always
unpack
start that before
this.
you get, yeah, before you give it to somebody else. We talk about self-love so much, but we don't talk about self-forgiveness, forgiving yourself. And what is wrong? Why can't you not like what he did and had a good time at this point? You know, we take and out the equation, and that's what we go wrong at. Yeah, it wasn't all bad. And how is you betraying yourself if you lived in the moment and enjoy that? We can't live life waiting for the other shoe to drop. We don't know what the future may bring. That does not stop us from living life now. And then trusting yourself like you did, that if shit go bad, you get out. Trust yourself. Stop trusting everybody else. Trust your damn self. I'm going to enjoy this moment. I'm going to enjoy us on this vacation. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I trust myself that I'm going to be able to deal with it when the shit happens.
Ooh, that's hard. That is hard, because that was. I mean, I see that, and that trust and that letting in, but I definitely remember when I was in that situation. Even in the good moments, it was like, okay, I want to enjoy this, but there was always this undercurrent of like, when am I going to pay for this later? Because I knew it
Okay.
was coming. I knew he was going to do something. And it was like, when am I going to pay for this later? What's he going to do later? And that always like infected it. But I get what you mean about, you know, trusting
Because you
yourself.
control that. You only can control you,
Yeah.
and you only can honor the experience. Even with all that worry, did that stop shit from happening? No. So you talk about betrayal, right? You betrayed yourself by two parts. You betrayed yourself from the experience of living in the day because you deserve pleasure, and you betrayed yourself again by just so caught up in worry. So caught up in worry, you didn't even get what you deserve. So
Yeah.
when we talk about
I mean, I
betrayal,
betrayed
wasn't
myself
that
even
betrayal?
before that by being in it because I knew that it was going to happen. I mean, it did happen, but it's like it happened so many times. I really should have just been gone by then, you know, which is why I had to
Mm-hmm.
heal that around myself of like, oh, I stayed too long. And, you know,
But what did it? But what did he bring out in you? For something to continue to happen, it's a pro and con of all behavior. It's something that was good for
yeah,
you,
yeah,
something that you like, and that's what you out of that experience. Always remember reason, season, or lifetime. What was the reason,
mm,
right?
okay,
And that might be a reason for you to be more aware. Or the season may be from to help you through a certain part. And if
yeah,
a lifetime he's not your man, but he's gonna be a good friend.
mm.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe
get what
not.
you mean.
I'm just
Maybe
saying.
somebody else.
But I'm just
This is
saying.
a person that is like totally out of my life, but like totally out of my life and needs to be out of my life. But like you said, it's like reason, season. Like they were there for a season, but now like now that's over. They're not going to be there for life. But reason and season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, reason, season, or a lifetime. That's with anything in our life. Because we see that for friends. Our girlfriends come and go.
yes. Oh
Our
my
girlfriends
gosh.
come and go. Yeah, and you know, everybody not sis, everybody not this. She was there for a reason. And see, that's the part of I give part of healing is acknowledging and giving yourself permission to not understand. Giving yourself permission not to know. That's the best gift you can give yourself of not knowing and understanding everything. Because when you try to do that, you so get tunnel vision. Sometimes you just got to be okay. Be like, you know what? I don't know. And like you said, I'm going to be okay. Did I die? Did I die? I don't know. I don't understand. And I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that being okay with the uncertainty. Allowing yourself to be uncertain is so difficult, especially it goes hand in hand with trusting yourself and trusting like, you know, that you'll be able to make a better decision later, trusting that you'll be able to leave or stay or adjust or things like that. And a lot of us don't trust ourselves because we've had experiences where, you know, like you said, you learn from betrayal or you learn from watching people and how they responded, and then you start following that same path. So it takes a lot of like breaking that down.
Okay. So the question I asked, if you don't trust yourself, why do you project so much trust into somebody else? What's the biggest thing in relationship is trust. So
Mhm.
if trust the issue, how can you project it on your partner? You say, I don't trust him. I don't trust her, but you don't even trust yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. I
know,
mean, that's true.
it is. And also think about this, because this is came up in some of the professional circles I am. Do we as Black women hold ourselves so much to a higher standard that we have to know everything? We
Mm,
have to be all and know all. So if we don't know all, that really depletes us in the spaces that we move. So we have to know. So we don't give ourselves permission not to know. We don't know is that having that voice in our head that I gotta figure it out, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, it's killing us. So when I tell people in session, I'm gonna give you permission not to know, the body, you should see just the body just say, what? What do you mean? I don't understand. And then they just exhale and just take it. Because nobody gave us permission not to know, because we have to know everything. We have to
Absolutely.
be better than everybody else. We have to do this better than everybody else. We have to dress better, be more educated than everybody else. So we have to know. So in the relationships, I see so many people trying to understand their partner so much, it is driving them crazy. I said, they don't even know themselves. So how do you expect you to know them?
Mm.
And they just look at me. I'm like, yeah, everybody, your partner is your unsolvable puzzle. They can't figure themselves out, and we give sometimes our partner this hierarchy that they know all. Well, we working on ourselves, but we think they should have their shit together. So when they don't
Yeah.
know how to communicate with us, when they don't know why they cheated, when they don't know why, we get so mad. But I said, but aren't you healing yourself? Don't you not know a lot of aspects of yourself? So that's why I also talk. We have to put ourselves sometimes in other people's shoes and be like, I might not understand, but I validate that. I can understand that I don't understand you.
Okay.
Shit, sometimes understand that you don't understand. Like, I take that. I can feel that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's complicated. No,
It is.
this is so good, especially with the like as Black women having to know everything and having to be better and having to be at the top, because there is that like having to be twice as good for half as much, like that narrative, and the way it shows up and the way that people look at us and how we have to respond. It's like we're constantly in a state of needing to excel just to be seen as like worthy, or all of those
Mm-hmm.
things that are tied into it. And the way that shows up is not only trying to know everything, but trying to be perfect. Like trying to
And
know
how does that
everything
show
all
up in
the
our
time.
relationships? How did
Yeah.
that show up in relationships? How did that show up at your job? How did that show up in mothering?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it
We
shows up
see, we see
everywhere.
that I need to know everything transcends throughout our life, but to be aware of it and sometimes giving yourself permission. I'm gonna take it one step further. I feel sometimes if I don't understand and I turn it off, that's self-care.
Okay.
That's self-care because when I don't understand something and it's bothering me to the point that it's harming me. Have you ever tried to figure something out so hard
Oh
that your
yeah, I
damn
do that
head
all the
hurts?
time. I call it catastrophizing. I like think about like what's the worst case scenario and how to handle it and blah blah, and then I got to be like stop, because this is literally not happen. Literally
And
none of
I
this
think
has happened. Stop.
when you stop, I think that's self-care.
Yes. Yes. And
Especially
that's a
and then
habit. That's a pattern.
yeah,
Like for me, I know
it
that's a
is.
habit because that's part of my survival. That's part of like these things cause me pain or these things cause me trauma. So let me think it to death now before it happens. And it's like, wait, this is actually not going to help me right now because it hasn't happened and I'm just stressing myself out. And so it takes that
Mhm.
moment of like stop and break, like actually breaking the pattern when you're in it, to be like, no, I'm not doing that right now. I'm not
Mhm.
catastrophizing, and that's hard. It can be hard. Like I'm getting better at it, but I call it catastrophizing or storming, mental storming.
hmm But when you stop that, I see it show up in couples therapy when you have a partner who asks, and it's usually women. I'm sorry, I'm not coming for women today, but I just had a sessions all women where we shoot questions like bullets, bow, 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 and they can't even dodge them, and not even they don't even get the answer out. And here go another question, and I just look at them like, why do you do that? Well, I need to know. I'm like, you don't need to know shit. You want to know, because what you want to do with that information? And they just sit there and ask. I say, you so in the point of need to know is destroying you and your relationship.
Mm.
Why don't you give them time? And that's when I say you communicate with your partner. you don't talk about shit, because a lot of relationships are surface. Before they get deep with you, you on to the next question.
Mm.
And then if they don't know, you feel like they withholding from you and it's a scam and they lying. But sometimes, damn, people don't know. You
Yeah.
don't know everything. And you pretend like you do. And that's why a lot of women walk around are frauds. We think we got it all together and we don't. And we project that onto our partner. And when they don't have it all together, we get mad. Well, I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Oh man. Okay, so what are some of the things that men tend to do? Because we talked about about some of the habits that women have. What are some of the habits or things that men tend to do?
Shut down,
Mm, okay. Yep.
lash out, shut down, lash out, forget it, man. You don't listen to me. Um, Smoke, drink. That is younger, and you always had your mother told you to use your words. Sometimes men, I find that some of my domestic violence, they don't use their words. They just start hitting because they don't know the words, and it's frustrating. And that's why you say use your words, and they don't know what words to use. So I see all kinds of different stuff with men and women. So like I said, I'm not biased to it, but it's time for us to start really, really understanding the behavior.
Okay. So is there an element there of, because someone gave me this advice years ago, was I was having communication issues with the person I was with, and somebody was like, you need to learn how to listen to them the way they actually intend to be heard, not the way you think, not like the assumptions that you're making about what they're saying.
Hmm.
And then you need to learn how to speak to them the way they listen, and not just the way you want to speak to them if you want to actually communicate. So it had to go on both ends. So is there an element in there of adjusting the way that you communicate and the way that you even just listen to the person?
One thing, we have to listen to understand and not rebuttal. When you
Okay.
ask somebody stuff, more listening to understand. And you can kind of pick up the pattern and you refer back to them like, so what you saying. And another thing is that we need to ask our partners is, do you want my advice or do you want me to listen?
Yes.
Because not everybody want to be saved. Especially we
Yes.
coming home. Sometimes you just need support.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want no, sometimes I see in relationships that we so used to, again, knowing everything, we try to project that on, and sometimes they just want you to listen to them. They know what to do. They just want you to listen to them.
Yeah.
So a part of that is getting to know your partner. You, after a certain time, and learning styles change. Learning
Oh.
styles change, but that's why you got to constantly check in with your partner and be like, babe, you know, how can I support you? I love those how questions. Those how questions are so arousing and sexy. Baby, how can I better listen to you? I know during our last conversation, it was miscommunication. How could we better solve that problem? What can we do to listen more effectively with each other? You know, First, the thing you check in is, just because you're ready to talk don't mean your partner is ready to listen. Is that a good time? Sometimes we take because they there for granted. Some people got their own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and asking your partner this thing. And that's another thing, that we get to the point that we own the person. So we got a right to just project them stuff onto them because they ours, and that's not true.
Correct.
They have right and validation. You have to, gratitude. Thank you for listening. Thank you for that. We take that so much out, but it always amazes me how we give that to people on the street and at jobs that we don't love or like, but we give them the respect, but we don't respect the person that we want to be intimate with.
Mm, yeah. So So your handle on Instagram, shifting gears a little bit, your handle on Instagram, Noir Sex Therapist. Let's talk a little bit about sex, because I think I remember something about like reconnecting after betrayal, and I want to know a little bit more about that on the sex avenue, like either by yourself or with the other person, because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there are layers to that. There's like reconnecting this person, but there's also like there might be a disconnect that you might have of yourself after betrayal or after trauma or after something happens. So talk a little bit about that.
When you reconnect, first, betrayal shatters your whole world, even your idea of self. So anytime that you heal, and you have to first work on yourself, because a lot of us, the betrayal really, like I like to say, what did the affair say about the relationship? What did the affair say about yourself? And then you have to simmer in that a little bit, because some of us come with low sexual esteem anyway and low self-worth. So we can't project our need to fix onto our partner, right? So just say your partner had went outside and had a sexual affair. So you come back and say, what do I need? It's that sexual intimacy. I need to be sexually intimate with myself to see, why am I so affected by this? Because a lot of times during infidelity, we think it's all about us, and it's not all about us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But something is, it kind of triggers some like flaws we have in ourselves. And what happens? Let's deal with it. I don't know a lot about sex education. I withhold sex when I'm angry. You know, I don't talk during sex. And then sometimes get in tune with yourself, right? So then when you get with your partner, you talk about it. How is our sex like? Remember, intimacy starts outside the bedroom. So you talk about your sex and intimacy outside the bedroom and be like, you know what? How do we connect? How do you like to connect? What does sex mean to you? What does desire mean to you? So when I say sex after betrayal, we really starting from ground zero, because I want to get to know you better. And sometimes we're not ready for sex after betrayal, but that doesn't stop us from being intimate. When I work with committed couples who want to stay together, right? This is not for recovery, is not for everybody. So when I work with couples, they're committed to stay and work it out. So we talk about touch and honest communication, and it's levels to it, because we talk about dealing with flashbacks and everything.
Mm.
So that's what we do with couples. When you decide to go outside and leave the relationship, we got to deal with a lot of trauma again, and we do it again. What does that sexual betrayal mean to you? Especially it's hard when the sex is good. People got the misconception that sexual intimacy betrayal happens in bad relationships. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Sometimes you can have sex with somebody, you can be intimate with them, but sometimes it's something inside of them. They want to see themselves in somebody else. It has nothing to do with you.
Mm.
And understanding that, but knowing some things that you might want to heal. Did you really betray yourself and not think about what you like about sex and really put it more into them? How are you going to be better in this relationship with communicating your wants, needs, and desires? How are you going to advocate for yourself? How are you going to listen more to your partner?
Yeah.
These are the things that there's some basic things we work with if you're going to stay or if you should go. But it's another step when you decide when it's a couple, because you really talking with connection with your partner.
Absolutely. Ooh, that makes a
And
lot of
what does intimacy?
sense.
What does intimacy mean to you? What does that? Please, and I know if anybody listening, you can ask yourself these questions, and these are great journaling questions that I love to ask. Is what does a relationship mean to you? What does love mean to you? What does desire mean to you? What does infidelity mean to you? And what does betrayal mean to you? because so many times we take what everybody else give us, but we don't form our own definition, and we try to make it work for us, especially love and desire. I've worked with so many people who have, they say they don't desire or low libido, and don't even understand arousal and how arousal cycles are different as we age, or as we deal with trauma, or at different times of the month. You know, how do you know you aroused?
Yeah.
We learn ourselves. Like I said, we spend all this education learning these philosophies and all this shit. But what about the book of you?
Yes.
And you know, we talk about that. You mentioned my Instagram. If you follow me, I always say me before we. I believe a relationship is two healthy people. I really, that's my biggest thing, even in couples.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because, like me before we, it's even just looking at my experience, like where I was going into certain relationships is like kind of a mess going into one versus like coming out of that and like doing a lot of healing around that emotionally abusive relationship and then getting into the next one is like I felt like I was much more grounded in who I was and what my boundaries were and what my desires were and an ability to actually communicate that. And of course, like it changes and you want to continue getting better and discovering yourself. So it's not a process that ever ends, but it's
No.
that, like I
Yeah.
had gotten to a place where I was like, I feel really good. I feel really solid in who I am, in the things that I want, in the things that I don't want. And I feel like I can effectively communicate that. And I feel like that changes the game when you go into a relationship. So starting yourself and understanding yourself makes so much sense. Now, with the couples that you work with, like you said, you work with couples who are committed to staying together. What is, for those who go into and they're like, yes, we want to stay together, we are committed to doing the work, what kind of, like, what's like the success rate? Like do those couples end up like coming through and being like, yes, we're making it work?
Yeah. If, like I said, it's a committed couple. The committed couples, people got a myth in that infidelity break up relationships. And you can look at the studies that you can look in pop culture. Infidelity doesn't break up relationships. We can name 5 people right now that worked through it or grew through it, but that doesn't mean it's right for you.
Yes.
So I don't know the percentage off of hand, but you can probably say probably 75% going to pull through or work through, but that doesn't mean it has anything to do with the infidelity. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
other
yeah.
factors.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
sometimes it's other
about the
factors.
commitment of like we are committed to working through our issues. Let's do the work to do that. Like I feel like sometimes it's like a betrayal happens or something happens and people don't want to put in the work, or one person's putting in all the work and the other person's not putting in any work, and it's like when you have two people who are like, yes, we're here, we're willing to do the work, we want to do the work, that there's so much more that ends up being possible than just your problems ending up breaking you down.
And that's one thing we talk about. It's not the problem's going to come. It's how we resolve them, how we work together. So we're saying that the success again is based on how committed the couple is. People can say they're committed, but it's how committed they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, problems going to rise, problems going to come and go, but that is how we resolve it. How do we come together to resolve the conflict? We two different people, and to think that we're gonna always agree is unrealistic.
Oh
So
yeah.
I work with my success rate so far has been good. I'm not really gonna say 100% because I really never follow them. But far as there, when you done with infidelity recovery or education about infidelity, you gonna answer your own questions. Should you stay or should you go?
Yes.
You're gonna have the education that you need to heal, because we talk about affairs. We talk straight about the affair. We talk about communication. We talk about relieving blame. We get to the root. So when at the end of infidelity recovery or anything about education about infidelity, you're going to know yourself, should you stay or should you go? You already ahead of the game far as healing, instead of with no education, no counseling, no thing like that. So even if you decide to uncouple, right? You are more apt to have a better relationship because you really solve or really understand that relationship for what it was worth.
Yes. I was
So I'm
actually
gonna
just
say
going to
number
ask you
three.
about that too, about people who separate. Is that like, they're people who are like, oh, we understand this, we understand what was going on, and like, we don't want to continue together, but like now, maybe even they've resolved that with each other. They're just not continuing together. And now they're each in a better place to have a different kind of relationship, or a healthier relationship with other people. I think either way, it's powerful, whether you're committed and you're staying together, or like you end up separating, but like you coming out of it and coming out of it with a better knowledge of yourself and what was happening in that situation is just so much more powerful going forward.
Yeah, it is, because that betrayal is to that relationship. You don't take it and transcend it through your whole life until you everybody else, because you got the answers that you need. You understand how you move and how they move and what the relationship meant. So you got the knowledge that you need to move forward. It's not like when you abruptly just stop and go and you got all these thoughts in your head. And then you take those thoughts into another thing because they're not resolved. So that's why I feel like even if you don't stay together, to get the education you need, should you stay or should you go? And don't get me wrong, everybody is not in, will sit across their partner and understand it.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, all relationships don't have to be saved. And I say this because everything is not for everybody. Because I got so many people coming at me, what about this? What about this? I say, honey, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's not for you. It's so many platforms out there, but my platform is to assist committed couples who want to stay together, because I wanted to stay with my partner and I didn't have the tools. It's so many forums when you want to leave, and how to heal. It's so many forums for that. But my forum is for committed couples who want to stay together and how to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important, is that clarification that you just made, that you're not saying everyone is supposed to stay together or needs to stay together. You know, like me and my ex were not supposed to stay together. That was not healthy space. It was not going to be a healthy space. But like, coming out of it, you can come out of any situation and learn something that you could take with you, that's gonna change things for you, even just you by yourself. Because I feel like all these things that you're talking about in relationships and in couple, like you said, it starts with you, and that transfers outside of the relationship as well. You know, the way you handle betrayal, the way you handle him, the way you shut down, the way you're in survival, all of those things transfer outside of the relationship as well, and how you deal with other things in your life. And so when you understand, even in a situation of betrayal, what was going on, and understand more about you and what your needs are, you get to honor that in other places. I think it's really powerful.
And so I know we're about to wrap up, but what I want to tell any of your listeners who's sitting there and saying that therapy is not for them, they're not the one who need therapy. Their partner needs therapy. I use the scenario of a car accident. You both are in a car accident. They're driving. You hit something. Y'all both are injured. Shouldn't you both go to the hospital and get checked out? You know, so many people want to say, I shouldn't go, they should go. But you experience trauma. Even if you don't go to the same hospital as them, shouldn't you go and just get checked out and make sure you're okay, and answer some of the questions you got in your head, instead of going home with a concussion and having lifelong headaches down the road? Because you didn't get something talked to, or you didn't get healed, or you didn't get that broken arm fixed. And I say this to people because everybody don't believe in therapy, and that's okay. I'm just saying, get to somebody and talk through this. This is what I didn't have. People just shook me off and said, oh, this just happened to everybody. You get through it. And so I lived getting through, and I didn't live. I just got through.
Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here. Tell people where they can find you.
Okay, you can find me on my Instagram at Noir Sex Therapist, no E in sex. I am on Facebook as Kaleidoscope Services with Renelle E. Nelson, and Kaleidoscope Services LLC.org. And I keep forgetting I have another Instagram that's solely for affairs, for committed couples who want to work through it. I give tips and all kind of sexy stuff to do, and that's affairaftercare.com.
Ooh, all right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation, for these insights and these nuggets. This is really, really powerful. I love the perspective that you're bringing to it. And some of the things that you said that even challenged me, where I was like, oh, that's hard for me to wrap my head around, but I love it. And that's exactly why we have these conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, if you want someone to keep you accountable and make you look at your shit, definitely go and connect with Renelle. I've been following her on Instagram, and she has some great content and just little nuggets of things for you to think about that will really help open up your mind and challenge you in how you've been operating. So she is amazing, and I'm so glad that she was on the show. Now, before you go, I want to make sure that you know, on this subject of looking at your shit outside of relationships, I do have my program, my fall program from Oreo to Empowered, which has gone from a 7-week program to now an 8-week program, because there is a component that I realized I needed to bring in, and it's getting a whole week for itself, and that component is pleasure. Anyways, the program is all about dismantling your Oreo complex and healing from the pain of that rejection and all the ways that it has affected your life, your relationships, your sense of self, and your creative work, and stepping big into what it is that you are creating so that you can have a powerful impact on the world. There are 2 tiers to choose from because I'm trying to make it more accessible, and I do have scholarships for tier 1, so you do have to go apply. You can go to kristeniris.com/Oreo, check out the program, apply for tier 1, or you can go right there and join tier 2. All the details are on that page. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you get new episodes, and rate and review where you listen. It is the best way to help others find us and get this show out to more ears. And if you'd like to help support this podcast, I invite you to join my Patreon page at patreon.com/melanatedrising. In fact, you can go there and check out a special afterthoughts video that I will have for this episode, and that I have for many of the episodes before this one, and will continue doing for the ones that are coming after, but those are exclusively for patrons, and you can join at any tier, and you can watch those afterthoughts videos, as well as my most, but not all, of my Instagram live stream replays once they come off of Instagram in that 24-hour period. So you do get some benefits by joining as a patron, and you help to support the production of this show. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Melanated Rising. Always remember to stand in your Black creative power.